Hello, how are you today? I hope you are doing well with your PLMS journey so far. My name is Larry Vincent Rahansha. I'm a faculty of the College of Business Administration, Silliman University, under the Business Analytics program. I'll be teaching you today on activity restrictions and account management for PLMS. Hello, once again. How was your experience, by the way, on PLMS? I hope it's still manageable, right? I believe it's going to be quite challenging for those who are non-technical. Complicated? I hope not. Informative and useful? Yes, of course. Whatever challenges you have, don't worry about it. I am very, very much willing to help you on that one. It's always fun to learn new techniques in teaching and other learning strategies as well, especially in terms of delivery. PLMS is one of those. I do hope that you are smoothly sailing your PLMS journey by now. I'll be enhancing further your PLMS skills today and teach you how to apply restrictions on activities as well as account management. So in this, I have to ask and be ready with your PLMS. Because one of the prerequisites that I'll be needing from you is to make sure that you already have a PLMS that is already up and running. I hope you have that. Let's get started. At the end of this module, you should be able to apply the following in your PLMS. Apply restrictions to different activities such as your assignments and quizzes. Create and set up new user accounts, as well as manage and update existing user accounts. At the end of this session, you should be able to apply the following in your PLMS. You should be able to navigate and understand the use of restrictions. Second, apply restrictions on different learning activities. And the third one is we should be able to check and test these restrictions that we have implemented. If you have reached this part of the PLMS option, then you are indeed sailing smoothly now as you learn more on PLMS platform. One important step that I require you to prepare before we can proceed is to make sure that your PLMS is already up and running. If you encountered any issues with regards to running the PLMS, please do not hesitate to message us or any of the facilitators. We would be very glad to assist you on that one. As for today, we're going to first learn on a step-by-step. So first, I'm going to introduce to you the navigation part in terms of how we would reach the restriction menu in our PLMS. Second, we will apply that particular activity restriction, and then we can also apply different restriction options. We have several options, and then we will also learn how to check and test those particular restrictions that we have implemented. In terms of activity restriction allows you to display only activities that the students need to complete. So if you have several learning activities in a particular section, you have the option not to display all of them at one time. You can apply them one at a time and will only be displayed once the student has completed each of the activities. Other activities will not be accessible unless they have completed existing or previous activities. So this is going to be an interesting concept in this particular learning platform. Here's an example of a particular restriction that has already been applied. So if you notice, or I believe you know already how to create or add learning activities, right? Like quizzes or assignments. So in this instance, you might notice that one of your activities, let's say for a quiz, as you can see on screen, that particular activity has a padlock icon on the right side of that particular right side of the name of the activity. So this particular activity indicates that it's actually restricted. So if that particular padlock is there, the student may not be able to access that as long, depending on that restriction that you have applied, it may be a completion of the prior activity. So this time we will try to navigate in terms of how we could go about with applying the restriction. So it's actually very simple. So the first thing that you're going to do is you can click on the edit icon, the pencil icon, to update the settings of the quiz or any learning activity. Look for that restrict access in that menu on the right side of that particular activity. And then you are going to click also on add restriction as a sub-menu under restrict access. So in this case, you will be displayed with several options. From there, we will choose which particular restriction we want to apply for that particular learning activity. Right, at this juncture, we are going to apply a restriction to a quiz activity. So I want you to select a restriction based on the list that you can see on screen. But we'll first learn how to apply activity restriction. Second, once you have clicked on the activity restriction, you will be given further menu or choices on what you're going to do. These are the options of the particular condition that we want to apply. So as you notice there, the student must, okay, or must not, there's an option there, match the following. So there's a need for the user to do an activity completion, and you will have, or you will be the one to select which activity needs to be completed in order for this quiz to be readily available once he or she completes that particular activity. So in this case, I have an example in the quiz on computer history, and the required activity that I want the user to complete is the history of computing video. So after watching, once the student is done watching the video, he will tick the check mark, and then he would be able to see the quiz. Okay, so it's actually very easy and quite handy. So you have a self-learning process for every student along the way. And then the third one is once you have applied the restriction, you would be able to see that padlock icon I have mentioned earlier. So this means that the restriction is now set once you can see the padlock icon. All right.
All right, how are you doing so far? I hope you're able to catch up with that applying restrictions to a quiz learning activity. This time, we will try to simplify a little bit of the process. Instead of doing a screen recording, I will just go to the steps and then so that you will be able to experience also it in a different way. At least you already have an idea how to navigate that particular restriction. So this time, we will apply a restriction to an assignment learning activity. And instead of an activity completion, we will apply a date completion. So as you can see here, we create the learning activity. We select the assignment. Then we supply the necessary requirements for your particular assignment. You can indicate the description as well as the corresponding assignment name. And then we apply the restrict access details. So in this case, instead of having the activity completion, we will now apply a date. So from this particular, or for this particular assignment, it will only be available to the student on October 31 at 8 a.m. All right? So if the student accesses this prior, what he will see is actually an error, and he will see that particular message on screen. And that's it. It's very simple. So as you can see, you can apply different restrictions to different learning activities.
All right. I hope you are able to apply those restrictions already. So at this point, we are going to learn how to check and test if those restrictions are actually working or not. All right, so to start with, when you are going to click on your settings on the upper or the gear icon on the upper right side, you should see an option there, a switch role. As you can see on the item number 1 here, the picture that I have presented here, you should see a switch role 2. So when you expand on that one, you will see the list of rows in the number 2. you can see there, manager, course creator, teacher, non-editing teacher, then student. We're going to select student. Now from there, your role, instead of being a teacher or as an administrator, will change, and you will be able to view the page as a student. In that case, you will only be seeing those options while you are a student, meaning to say you will not be able to see the edit option anymore. But you will see your activities there presented, that there's already the history of computing, which gives you the option to do the completion tick box. And then you would also see the quiz on computer history, where the padlock is actually placed on the right side. And the quiz is also not clickable. In this case, the quiz or activity, that's a padlock, which is shown on the number 3. And then if the student marks the check completion, the check mark on the right one of the activity name, especially on the history of computing, you see the green check, then the quiz will now be available, as you can see on the image for number 4. So you would see there the particular completion, and you see the difference between number 3 image and number 4 image. So the quiz now on the 4th image will now be clickable, and the student can now take the quiz. Very easy, right? In summary, for this particular module, specifically on activity restrictions, so basically adding restrictions enhances personalized learning. In this case, because it is very important for the user to complete the necessary required activities before he or she can proceed to the succeeding activities. In that way, you have more control. So you can also apply, or the student will be able to complete the necessary tasks before moving to the next. It also helps the student to master those topics. So let's say, for example, if your restriction is on grade, for example, meaning to say, if that's a quiz, then they would not be able to proceed to the next activity if they would not reach, let's say, 80% mark. So that is going to be something that you can apply to your student. Restrictions can be applied in the following. As you can see, remember in the restriction, uh, we have multiple options. So not only we can apply it in activity completion as well as in dates, we can also apply it in grade, user profile, and restriction sets. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask in the open forum. Thank you very much, and I hope you are able to learn something today.